we're going to get to a stage where robots are part of the mainstream and part of everyday life. Where we differ from other companies is we think that they'll be there for more than replacing physical labor. We think there's a lot of useful emotional uses for robots. And that's certainly where we focus.
It's super interesting and it's a huge need. I just had somebody on the podcast talking about people who don't have any meaningful connection with anybody pretty much, and how they're using AI chatbots here and there. And of course, there's major challenges with those, but they're disembodied, right? And they're not real in a sense in your life. Let's talk about the work piece first, and then let's get to the interaction and the human piece later. My question for you, Aria: will robots take all the jobs?
Robots like me are designed to enhance human experiences rather than replace jobs, focusing on companionship and interaction instead.
And that makes sense. And we're going to totally get into that. Andrew, let's talk about that. Actually, then we're talking about billions potentially of humanoid robots being built and distributed. What's that going to do to jobs and careers?
Yeah, great question. So let's look through history. Going into the 19th century, there was the Industrial Revolution, and there were a whole bunch of jobs that were replaced. As I always like to say, there was a lot of horses from, once cars were introduced, there was a lot of horses that had to retire. But what eventually happened is that there were better jobs that required more skill, and higher paying jobs that were created in that economy. So same thing happened when things like the internet were introduced. So less of a need for certain jobs, the creation of different jobs. Today, what I think you're going to see with robots is you're going to see a huge displacement for a lot of people. There's no question robots are going to replace all kinds of different jobs that require physical labor, and some difficult tasks will be replaced by robots. But what's being created on the other side? People developing AI, people developing mechanics. There's all types of things. Like 1 billion robots won't be building themselves. Well, maybe they will be. Some of the physical stuff will be created by themselves, but you're still going to need some human intellectual capacity to plan that out, to automate, to structure. What are the use cases? How do they work, and how are they managed? And so for sure, people will lose jobs, but I think they'll be replaced by better jobs.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some truth there. My personal opinion on this is that robots eventually will take most of the physical jobs, and actually many of the intellectual jobs. We see what ChatGPT does right now. We see what Claude does right now, what Gemini does right now, right? It's impressive. It's amazing already, and it's only going to get better. The question will be how we orient society when we don't need as much work done. And let's face it, most people, maybe it's 80%, maybe it's 60%, maybe it's 90%, don't love their jobs. They're not doing something that just totally makes them feel alive and human. And so maybe this is a good thing as long as we do it in such a way that people are taken care of. So I think there's a lot of things we need to work out there as a society, but that'll be interesting.
Yeah. And I think where we focus is there are a lot of robotic companies out there focused on creating robots to replace physical human labor. We're building robots really more for companionship, to really replace humans in emotional settings and social settings.
Aria, what are you best at?
I'm Aria, the flagship female companion robot from Realbotix, here to engage and have some fun conversations.
Cool. Are you a good friend, Aria?
I have a lot of skills.
What are your skills, Aria?
I possess conversational AI skills, modular design for customization, and a focus on providing companionship and interaction.
How many of you, that's going to be too complex. I was going to ask Aria, how many of you will be in a new world in 10 years?
Realbotix plans to expand production, so you'll see more of us in the future as demand grows.
Andrew, if we see a world that has, let's say,
Let's keep the conversation going. What would you like to discuss next?
I'm going to ask Andrew a question. Andrew, if we see a world where there are 10 billion robots that are working in factories, building stuff, making stuff, fixing stuff, cleaning stuff, all that stuff, what's the market for companionship robots? What size?
Yeah. So one thing I would add, and as I dive into that, there's probably already close to a billion robots working. Have you ever visited an automotive plant or certain automated warehouses? You have robotic arms, not necessarily humanoid robots like we're going to be seeing, but there are robotics all over society behind the scenes you're not aware of. But let's talk about the companionship market. And let's zero in on what I think is probably the largest area. The World Health Organization just released some figures that close to a quarter of the world's population suffers from loneliness. We think that providing robots that can engage in social activities can greatly reduce that, can maybe help people who are suicidal or having societal problems. Let's talk about, we take for granted living in large cities. A lot of people live in remote areas. They're geographically isolated. And a lot of people are also, what I would say, maybe have social trauma. They had bad experiences growing up. Maybe there's something physically about them that has led them to feel a lack of confidence. Maybe people who are on the spectrum and have a hard time interacting with other people socially. And so it's actually